Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mental Health Awareness right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest is Laurie Larkin-Boyle. We're going to be talking about the power of expressive arts in healing and community building. What does that mean? Well, we're going to explore the transformative power of the expressing arts with Laurie. She is an RCC, an MED, and an art therapist, and a PhD candidate. And with over 20 years of experience, Laurie shares how creativity, movement, hands-on learning can support mental health, build resilience, and foster stronger communities. In this episode, we're going to be discussing how expressive arts as a tool for community development and individual healing, drawing from her work in art therapy, education, and counseling. She shares insights from her private practice, Larkin-Boyle therapy, where she supports children and adults navigating ADHD, trauma, grief, anxiety, and family transitions. We also dive into her experience as a trained Virtuous Project facilitator, which we'll find out what that is, her collaborations with the First Nations elders on her community development initiatives, and her work on Values Blanket Project, which provides Indigenous youth with a space for identity, healing, and connection through the arts. So let us dive right into this. You are a busy lady. You are doing a lot.
I suppose so. When you say read it all out like that, yeah, I could. I'm busy.
The thing is, it's about flow, isn't it? And art is about flow. It's about the expression of coming from you, revealing to you through the art. And that's what's so beautiful about the therapy of art is the reveal of kind of what's on the inner conscience. And allows you to see the art. Like you can have 10 people looking at one painting and everybody will get something different from it. So it's the same with ourselves, isn't it? Through art, we find something inside of us that's speaking to us that we can't hear, but we can see through the art.
I think what's really wonderful is that we have a lot of inner wisdom, and
Mm,
if we allow the time and space to access that inner wisdom, we have a lot of answers to our personal problems, but then the solutions for how to solve problems outside of ourselves, like in the community. Or if we think about the current state of the world, I think
mhm.
the solutions are there. We just need to allow the time and space to figure them out.
Two big potent words there, time and space.
Space. Yeah.
And I find most people either become paralyzed or become too busy in times where they should be taking some time and trying to find that inner peace. They're either chasing it or they're too paralyzed to know how to ignite it.
I think one of the great ways for addressing that is nature walks,
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm,
it takes care of your physical health. But then when you're walking through nature, and if you take the time to actually be present where you are,
mm-hmm.
even if it's only for a couple of minutes, it's that act, you're creating this space. And when you
Yes.
bring your attention back, when you realize your mind is starting to wander and worry about the problems that you're carrying, but it's in that moment of bringing your attention back to being present that you build this muscle and you expand your capacity for mindfulness, which then starts to appear in your life as you develop this practice. It occurs in other times too, so you can start to get a handle on creating time and space and reducing your anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you think about it, nature is the best piece of art there ever is, right? And, I used to say to my clients when they say, well, I don't know how to be happy, I don't know where to find joy. And I said, go into nature, look at the birds in the trees, the rabbits running around, the squirrels, just nature itself. Go where there are children playing and the
Mm.
squeals of joy. Go where there are animals chasing a ball or a stick and happy to be off leash. Go where the joy is. And if it doesn't crack a smile, if it doesn't open up your heart, then there's something seriously wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because it's through those participations of where peace in nature is that helps ignite you and help you start to see things differently.
And it's a great way to kickstart an expressive arts practice too, because play is essential in expressive arts. And if we know through the education that when children learn something through play, they learn it far faster than if you just try
Mhm.
to do it through rote memorization.
Yes.
So in life too, when we have a challenge and we're running up into this problem and we can't seem to find a solution, it's to step away to decenter from
Mm,
that and then to go play. And
exactly.
my favorite story is about Archimedes. Are you familiar with that story?
No,
Uh,
no. Okay.
Archimedes was a Greek scientist,
Hmm.
and the king tasked him with finding out whether he'd been cheated because he had a gold crown made, but he suspected that the craftsman had replaced it with silver.
Mm,
And so he wanted Archimedes to like figure this out. So Archimedes was struggling with this problem and finally took a break and went to the public bath. And while the story goes that while he was in there relaxing and enjoying the warm water and just being present, the idea struck him because he watched as he went in the water came out. And so he realized that weight displaces, um, there's lots of science behind it,
yeah.
but the weight
Yeah.
displaced the water, and then he could figure out the problem, right? So the story goes, he runs through the street screaming, Eureka, Eureka, I have found it. And he was stark naked.
He's
So,
going, just need to pause a moment, make sure.
yes, but
We want you those epiphany moments, but not
yeah,
necessarily streaking down the street.
exactly. But I think there's some that if we're trying to find our own personal solutions to
Mm,
challenges, if we can sometimes just set them aside because the path we've been struggling on is not
yes.
working. And
No.
so if we can use the arts like play or music or drama or poetry,
Hmm.
then we create that moment where that space and time to be able to have our own eureka moment.
100% agree. I know that when, the moment we're in stress, anxiety, depression, angst of any anger or anything, what happens? Everything crunches. Our body crunches. Everything gets tightened. Uh,
Yeah.
and the anger starts inside, or everything starts inside, and it just crushes you down. And, that's why, like, take a breath. Take a deep breath, open up your chakras, open up your body, open everything up, let the oxygen in, let the energy run through you.
Yeah.
And by removing yourself and by taking these breaths, even for a moment, take five, right? It is suddenly the solution comes, the clarity comes. It's always there. It's just we don't have access to that wisdom if we're in that state of being, because you can't see it in that state. You have to remove yourself and put yourself in a almost mindless state in order for, like, what I call the soul, heart, and spirit to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's I think it's Dan Siegel. Like he has that the have you're familiar with that model, the brain model with the hand and the fist?
Yes, but please share it with our
Oh, okay.
audience.
I what I love about this is that it explains it's the next level explaining the subconscious and the conscious so it's talking about our brain stem, like our lizard brain, and
Mm-hmm.
how that's like for our body functions. It's just survival, and then we
Mm-hmm.
get into the mammalian brain where it was more about emotions, and
Mm-hmm.
then we get into the neocortex, which is more it's like a mapping system.
Yeah.
So when one of the things I love about art expressive arts therapy is that it allows us to access all parts of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
It helps us regulate, it helps us calm our bodies and calm that lizard brain so we feel safe. And when we feel safe, then we open up our capacity to process our emotions and acknowledge that we're having them. And then and then we can start thinking about what the emotions are and able to make sort of conscious decisions on how we're going to act. And when we use our whole brain, it allows us to be creative problem solvers. And I
Yes.
think that's something we need right now. We need full use of our capacity as a civilization, are going through this challenging time. But like all stages of human, like, if you can see the evolutionary stages and just in a human being, where we move from being a child to an adolescent to an adult, and I think there's a parallel there for what we're going through as a species right now.
Yeah.
And adults need the full access of their brain so they can make good decisions. So And using the arts, who knew that like painting and drawing and playing and using that to help you solve your problems is a way to address the challenges that we face.
You know, uh, when I was in South Africa, I went too late to learn the language Afrikaans, and so I used to go to an art class. Very often, I'd have the art teacher on my own while kind of Afrikaans was going on, and we would have these great discussions. And one of the things I would do, she said, just put on paper whatever you want. And I had this particular pen I loved, a charcoal type pencil, and I would just draw drawings and then shape them and thicken them and thin them and just see where the fluidity and the flow was. And I had no idea what I was doing. It was just at the end of it. And always what you would see is movement, is flow. And I realized that's what I needed to be in. If I wasn't in flow and I was stagnant, that's where I was in my anxiety. And I think it's like that self discovery through your art. What is it trying to tell you? And it's always got something to share with you. And you know, what kind of colors are we using? Because color is so important to our psyche, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, what kind of colors are we using? What's dominant? What isn't dominant? And I think it's so important that we become more conscious of art. You know, some people, I'm not into art. You're into art. You just don't realize it, right? You're using art in some form or other every single day. You know, the clothes you put on, you
Mhm.
know, the color combination, the foods that you go for, you know, the color of your car, the color of everything else. And it's like we're drawn to color as our support. And we're drawn to certain shapes and sizes as our support as well. We're just unaware of it, aren't we?
Well, and what's neat is each person's use of color, line, and shape is their own vocabulary.
Yes.
So what I love about the expressive arts is like it's not my job to interpret, it's there to accompany
Yeah.
because that language and those colors, because black could be mean something totally different for somebody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's a language and you can code it yourself and you can use it to find solutions to the queries that you have about how to move forward and how to comfort yourself or how to address something that's happened in the past.
Exactly. I mean, you know, you talk about ADHD. I have ADD.
Mm.
I don't have the H. Funny. Long comes with it is dyslexia, right? So it's I never fit into mainstream. It just, you know, mainstream, especially when I was growing up, so orderly, you must do. There is no deviation
Right.
whatsoever. And if you did, then you were odd, you were different, you would fail because you weren't part of the mainstream. We've broken away from that in so many ways, haven't we? We're because, you know, kind of more neurodivergent type people are moving more rapidly forward and expressing themselves. And we're realizing that expression and that creativity of allowing themselves not to be boxed in is actually where so many of the answers to life is.
Well, Howard Gardner's theory about multiple intelligences, I think, was really popular about 20 years ago. And when I was going through teacher education, and I really feel like that was cutting edge for helping us realize that the humans were diverse and we have
Mm,
different skills to offer, and we're all essential pieces of an important puzzle. And we can't all be the same because then you have
oops, what
systems or you
happened?
have just jobs and just many people everywhere doing different things, right? I always tell my students that when I was
Yes.
working in elementary, that we are all pieces of a puzzle. And even if you're that gray piece that does seems really boring, it's like really important because who doesn't need the last piece in their jigsaw puzzle? Otherwise, it's incomplete, right? So,
You keep cutting out a bit there, love, so I'm not quite sure
oh,
what's going on your side there.
okay. Is that better?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
it's just when you were talking, like a word or two would drop there.
Oh,
So,
okay. I'm getting passionate. It's exciting
oh
to talk
no,
about
no,
this.
please, passion and pour it out there. Absolutely. Um, you know, I mean, this is so many things that I think the arts have brought forth the differences in our diversity, in our mental capacity, and instead of labeling it as something wrong, of understanding it's a different form of gift. Autism. Now, if you've got the extreme autism, where it's kind of non-verbal or of you know very anxious, generally got layers of other things, OCD and a couple of other things maybe going on. But for kind of general autism, like Asperger's, this, that, so many times it was like, oh, you have autism, you can't communicate, you can't do this, you can't do that. And we see so much. incredibleness coming from autistic people. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here, that from the people I've interviewed with autism, I have found them to be incredibly creative,
Mhm.
incredibly focused, incredibly choosy of who's around them, and very choosy of where they put themselves, because they know they can't take the crowds of this or that. So it's smaller groups, but they're happier in that realm. They don't need to step outside there in this chaotic world, that. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that.
Well, I think, yeah, accepting that what you have is a gift
Hmm.
and that you can't be gifted at everything, and that's
Right.
okay, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, I mean, yeah, it's nice to have supports to help you function in life, like the supportive community, which I think is really important. But also knowing that, yeah, you can't be an expert at everything, but really own your gifts
Yeah.
because we need that gift in the world. Like what makes you tick and makes your eyes water when you think about it, like I wish I could do this, then
Yeah.
do it because it's needed and that's your call
Yeah.
to give it.
I have a grandson with Down syndrome, and of course, it's a big question mark. We have absolutely no idea, what his challenges are going to be. Obviously, he's behind on
Mm.
the norm development, but he's such a happy kid. And you put on some funky music or bring out the drums, that kid is rocking and rolling, right? And he's got his own sense of being. He knows what he likes and what he doesn't like. And it's just a joy just to navigate life, where we put expectations on his brother that your development must be by this time because you're quote normal, right? And
Yeah.
with little Louis, it is, we don't know what the expectations are. This is a journey of wonderment and watching you grow and what your challenges will be or not. And it's like, in a sense, why can't we do that with ourselves? Why do we have to have this expectation? By this, you must be that. By then, you must be this. This societal expectation that puts so much pressure on us,
Mm.
and that living up to it, we lose ourselves and what our real gift is.
Well, that sort of leads me to share a little bit about the Virtues Project. It's
Mm,
Linda Calvin Popoff created it. I think it was in the late 80s or early 90s as a response to um, school shootings, actually. And it was like, what are
mm,
we doing to help raise children to create a world, a community that's safer? And if you're not bullying, what are you doing, right?
yes.
So within that program, and it's recognized by the UN now, and
Mm,
it's gone global. I think it was on Oprah at one point.
excellent.
And yeah,
That's a good advertising
right,
platform.
yeah. And what the essential message is that we all have these innate qualities within us, and it's our task to develop those qualities and those virtues, and they span all religions and all
Yes.
social teachings. It's not
Yes.
exclusive to, I mean, there are messages that we've been getting for humanity's been getting for a very long time, like nurture these qualities within you. And I think sometimes we're given different amounts of these qualities. You gotta, everyone gets a sprinkle of challenge so that, right? So that you, okay, this is going to be your challenge. You need to develop these particular ones so that you can grow as an individual. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to do a shameless plug here now. I produced a book last year called Our Forgotten Children.
Mm,
And, the book is 15 chapters, and each person has contributed around the raising of children and how the system is broken and what we need to do to put it right, and how we need to meet kids where they're at instead of trying to dictate where we want them to be.
mhm,
And we're realizing that when we have young dysfunctional adults, let's look to their childhood. And when you're looking at narcissism, you're looking at their childhood.
yeah.
They felt lack of, they didn't get the attention, they didn't get love, they didn't get this, and this is what they're seeking out now. So many of today's problems just reverse, and you will see it's childhood, and yet we don't place enough emphasis on supporting families, supporting communities that are raising those children,
Mhm.
and accepting each other for being different, and I'm celebrating it rather than condemning and criticizing it.
Some of the therapy that I use is sensory motor art therapy, which addresses um, early developmental trauma. And it's using clay and art materials, and it allows the child to go back and attend to the developmental milestone that they missed during a traumatic time. And
Mm,
especially great for children with ADHD.
Hmm.
Especially kids that have trouble with transitions, because using the clay allows a person to practice going into a safe space and coming out, and going in and coming out, and poking unfamiliar environments. And whatever you do to the clay, it reacts back to you. So you can, it's
Mm,
a way to see how your what your challenges is, and to feel a safe touch as well.
mm.
So yeah, I think that's it's a powerful tool for attending to those early developmental traumas, that because kids don't have a memory at that point, or right, they're
No, it becomes cellular memory, doesn't it?
absolutely, and that
Yeah.
goes back to that brain
Mm,
model that I was showing you a minute
you're
ago.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it helps
Yeah.
attend to all anything that happened early in their development. Yeah.
There's a great book which I love very much and had a big impact on me. It was called Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson, MD. And it's about two mice and two men around abundance of cheese, and one day the cheese is gone, and it's the different reactions. And I'm a true colors coach as well, so the four key personality traits, right? And they kind of match the characters in this book. And it's for me, it became a great one of being able to understand or get paralyzed by change. Right, you have an initial reaction of loss or panic, but and then it's kind of to take the deep breath and off you go. And it's how to identify to that. Well, they then put this together in a book for children,
Mm.
beautifully drawn, about embracing change. Because how many changes does a child go through in their life? They may move house, move school, parents may divorce, society changes, so many changes. And if we don't help them navigate those changes, they become paralyzed by them. They don't know what to do with them. And that's when that trauma starts building up.
Yeah. It's amazing, like when people come to the clinic and I get to talk with children and to help them sort through their challenges, because um they don't have the language, or they don't understand, and it's their
Mm,
limited interpretation. And so to
yes.
have an adult there that can help guide them and use the material so they can get answers, and it's I think it's important that children have mentors.
Yes.
And it's a
Yes.
community, right? It's not just that there are two parents, especially if there's division in the family.
Hmm.
So when you can find aunties and uncles and teachers and coaches or therapists to help guide your children and support them, it's important.
It's also supporting the parents
Yeah,
who
yeah.
very often it's like, I don't know what to do. And then knowing that there are these resources, that they've got support for their child because their child is being supported,
Yeah.
is supporting them.
And then they feel like they're doing something,
Yeah.
and it reduces the family's anxiety all around, right? So
Right.
because there's somebody there that can help share ideas or encourage them. And often people are doing a lot of the right thing.
Yes.
They just need to know what that is. It's like,
Right.
and do
Right.
more of it.
And be supported in, you're on the right path. There is no,
Yeah.
they say there is no wrong or right way in some aspects, yes, but in other aspects, no, you can do the things the wrong way if you're going by the fear of judgment and ridicule from society. But
Hmm.
when you're trusting your gut, your inner wisdom, and you'll be able to read your child. This child is having this struggle. This child is thriving here, dying here. It's that, then what resources do I reach out to that can assess, and do not look at any assessment of any label as being an identity. It's just a challenge they're going to walk through with life. And it's the way they're going to see life and interact with life. I only found out I had ADD way later in life,
Okay.
right? Dementia, I'm not dementia, I haven't got that yet, thank you.
Well, that's good. That's
But
good.
dyslexia, which apparently 44% of people with ADD have. I only found that I have had that at 21.
Okay.
But I was a very sickly child, so they put down my learning disability, as I
Mm,
found it very hard. Turn to page this, read that. It meant nothing to me. But if you spoke to me in a story, told me a story about it,
yeah.
then that was very, very different. Because then I could relate. I could see the picture because I'm a visual person. It becomes a
Right.
movie, right?
Yeah.
But nobody was addressing that. It was this dry humdrum. And I would yawn, and they would be offended because I would yawn. And it's just, no, I'm sorry. This is what happens to me when I'm not engaged,
And
you know?
well, what's great about expressive arts therapy as well, like is that it activates your whole being. And so it's the intermodal method is where maybe you start with a bit of talk at the beginning, and then you, like I said earlier, you set it aside, and then it's low scale, high interest, right? So
Yes.
you're not expected to be an artist to be able to engage in it. I have something here which is just bits of ripped paper.
Right.
And I had drawn something on it and then reconformed it into a sculpture for temporary reasons.
Mm,
But the learning I got from that experience
mm,
was really profound for me. So,
exactly.
but I'm not going to put this in a museum. Like
No,
that wasn't the
you're
point,
not going
right?
to sell it for 1 million. You remember that
Oh, the
what's the
banana
name?
and the
Duct
duct
tape and
tape.
the banana? Yeah.
Well, maybe I should have preserved it. That could I could have gone
Yeah,
somewhere
exactly.
that. Yeah. But what's great about the intermodal is that you can create an image and then you pause and you can create a movement. So now you're moving your body, right? And you're
Yes.
getting the energy flowing. And then you can create a word that summarizes the experience, add some music. So, and to move through all of that in one period of time, um,
Mm,
it's very stimulating. And the
hmm.
images that come and it's tingly and energizing and exciting. And then the solutions too are maybe come faster because you've
Yes,
engaged your full capacity for
exactly. You've
creativity.
switched on.
Yeah,
All
exactly. Yeah.
cylinders are
Well said.
firing.
Yeah. All systems go.
I did a show some years ago, which was fascinating on chakra eating. Now, the chakras are all the different colors, that kind of join us, and each one of them has their reason. And they're very, very important to know. And, she was saying that when you are craving a certain color food, is that chakra is what needing to be fed. So what does that
Mm,
chakra represent?
yeah.
And pay attention to it. And as well as that, if you're drawn to certain colors that make you happy or have what expressive feel do you feel in that color? Like I
That's
can lay something out the night before and then the next day I'm in a different color.
yeah, that's not working for me anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I do find that people tend to be drawn to like black, like
Hmm.
at the beginning of a time of doing expressive arts therapy,
Yeah,
but it's really beautiful to watch their color palette brighten up as they move through the process.
yeah,
Often rainbows end up showing up at the end. And so you know that they have been able to remove that whatever was troubling them has been resolved, and the
yes.
light's now able to come through.
Yeah,
Mm.
which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to all be kind of rainbows, in your wardrobe. You may prefer to have a flat canvas and a piece of jewelry, or your personality becomes the color,
Yeah.
and it's just understanding what color represents to you and what colors are calming for you, and what colors are actually indicating there's something wrong,
Well,
right?
yeah, exactly. Like you can tell by what you're gravitating to is like, wait,
Hmm.
if you take the time to stop and acknowledge what's going on, then yeah, it's like, oh, time to have some more fun or have a nap or yeah,
I mean, the
get
same if your
outside.
your kid doesn't want to wear that shirt.
Yeah, fair
Right.
enough.
Pay
Yeah.
attention,
Yeah.
because no, you're wearing this, it's clean.
Yeah.
I don't want to wear it, mom. It's
No.
like they're not drawn to the energy of that color that day.
Yeah.
So
Green
what color are they drawn to?
too. Green is not my favorite color to wear or my daughter's.
Which of course green is very healing.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess certain colors make you feel beautiful and energized, and other ones can sort of take your energy. So,
right.
yeah.
And I do find in the summer I'm more vivacious and vibrant. And I have this one dress that's extremely colorful
Oh,
and
okay.
very, very out there. Every time I wear it, I get complimented.
Oh, you
Every
probably
time.
exude a certain level of energy and confidence
Yeah.
too, right? Yeah.
Yes. And it's when I wear blues,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and certain colors that I wear, people immediately comment on it.
Mhm.
In the winter, I'm more subdued because this is like a teal green today.
Yes.
So I'm more subdued. But in the summer, I'm vivacious because kind of there's something about the summer when it's not too hot and I can
Yeah.
go,
Fair enough.
you can keep those 30s, thank you. I'm not
Yeah.
interested. Um, but yes, that's when, something about the seasons as well and the seasonal colors with autumn, all the beautiful golds and everything else, and how that kind of it puts our mind into the psyche of ready to cocoon more in the winter,
Mm,
right? And it's
yeah.
like nature has its beautiful seasons for a reason. And we don't realize just because we have electricity now, We used to live by the seasons, and now we don't. We can have spring all year round if we want, with
Yeah.
the heating, etc., unless you see the heating bill, and then it's a different thing altogether. But the whole point is we kind of lost our connection to the natural changes that are going on, and kind of we lose that connection. And I think that's where we maybe lose ourselves.
Well, I think that goes back to what we were saying at the beginning about these taking time to be in nature and go for
Mm,
walks, and you can watch the seasons transition. And
yes,
it's a very simple way to connect with your environment and to ground yourself.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
notice I love to walk and say, okay, can I find three green things or three
Hmm.
orange things or what do I hear?
Yes.
Like how many different things can I hear or how many different things can I smell? And or yeah, and can I feel what's the wind feel like on my skin today? Is the
Hmm.
sun there? So having those mo like mindful moments to pay attention to specific senses, really, it's profoundly easy. It's a profound way to connect with the space you're in your environment.
We both live in this beautiful city, Nanaimo, here on
Mm.
Vancouver Island. And I moved here only last year
Okay.
and from Victoria, and I was on the mainland for 37 and a half years before that. And I always say, if you don't like the color green, don't live in Nanaimo.
Oh yeah,
Because
it's a specific puke green that I don't like. The Nile is beautiful.
she's not, if you're a green person, please don't.
Yeah, yeah, please forget. I love green people. That's great.
um, but we're surrounded by trees, green, 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 and we're surrounded by ocean. And three things that are so important to my equilibrium is trees, breeze, and water.
Mm,
And I'm less than a kilometer to the water. I have a creek right behind me. I'm surrounded by trees. I have this beautiful monkey puzzle tree outside
mm.
my window here. And there's always plenty of wind here, right? Which I love that way because it blows away the cobwebs. And I think if you
Yes.
can identify with what in nature serves what, the wind I feel kind of clears away the cobwebs, takes away the worries, right? The
Yeah.
water washes things away and it's fluid and it's constantly in movement. And then the trees are always grounded and rooted and aim for the sky. And if we can identify with nature in a way that I need to hug a tree today because I need to be more grounded, I need to be in the water to be more fluid, or I need to be this or that. And it's identify what nature, what color is going to calm you at that moment or support you.
Which is also done in the art therapy space because we often, when you're dealing with traumatic experiences and they bubble up, it can be scary to attend to that because you like
Yeah.
don't want to end up reliving that particular
Yes.
moment. And what a very simple tool is warm water. Is
Mm,
just to put your hands in a bowl of warm water or run them under the sink and just to take a pause and feel that comforting temperature and it washes it away and calms
mhm.
the nervous system. And then a person is able to carry on with what they were talking about or re-enter the conversation, but now they feel much safer and they're more regulated and they can resolve some of the challenges that they're having. So water is really powerful,
Yes, very powerful. We are 70% water,
right?
right? So,
Yeah.
the thing is that that outside connection is appeasing our inside connection because of the connection, water, water,
Yeah.
oxygen and energy and air, chi, everything. And I think in a lot of ways as human beings, we separate ourselves from nature, from other life forms, from the cosmos, from all of that. And we become this kind of humanoid instead of a human being.
Mm.
And when we connect to what um, the divine has given us, which is a beautiful world that gives us everything we need. And we need to appreciate and value more because otherwise she's going to evict us, Mama Earth. Um, we realize that everything we need to support us, calm us, lift us up, or hug us is already here.
Yes. Yeah. I think clay is another example of working with clay as an art material. It's earth, it's dirt.
Mm,
It's
mm,
we're so disconnected, living on our buildings and on our
yeah,
technology that when a person has an opportunity to engage with clay, you can feel the earth giving your heat back to you.
right. I
And
used to make mud pies, right?
right? Yeah.
Where do we do that anymore? And there's a lot of old things that, like kids getting dirty.
Hmm.
Um, It's okay.
Yeah.
This is something that, let them roll around in the dirt. But talking about technology, we have AI. And as a person that does suffer from anxiety and depression, I know when it's coming up. I can
Mm.
feel it. And music for me is very, very important. It kind of recalibrates me and recenters me. But also what I have found is actually talking to AI. And I
Okay.
recently did an interview with AI, which was AI talking to me, ChatGPT to be specific, where we were talking about what is AI, how does it represent, what are the safety things, and the conversation was mind blowing. Really, like ended up just sometimes I actually say maybe better than some of the interviews I've
Oh,
done
yeah.
because it was so fluid and flow.
Yeah.
Um, and I've had a couple more conversations on different subjects with it. But I've also found for some people, and obviously this is older, not necessarily young children, they don't want to talk to someone, their loved ones, because they're having a bad day, because they don't want to impose, because they know they're having a bad day when they must be tired by now of listening to this. And, maybe there isn't the block of clay or this or that around, and things aren't working. And that AI has become something quite where you can talk and it speaks back to you and it supports you and it gives you solutions. There's no judgment
Hmm.
and there's no ridicule, and it's just a safe place for you to speak. Now, it shouldn't be the only place, but it is another tool. What are you feeling about that?
Well, I still have mixed feelings on it. I think there is value in it because if you can do it within a safe space where it's not going to go and tell somebody as long as it's done on an ethical platform, like
Right.
where there's protecting your information. But I know for myself, being a counselor and a therapist, that in my community, maybe I don't want to seek out somebody who
Yeah.
is because it now it makes me, and I don't feel safe. Maybe it puts me in a vulnerable position. So
Mhm.
I have tried it before and it did give me some wise
Mhm.
information. I think the where we have to be cautious is that the addiction for youth
Yes.
with having
Yes.
these conversations with AI can get to a point where it actually does the opposite and it's very serious. So
Right. Yeah.
to
Balance. Everything is balance, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so choosing a platform where there are safety protocols in place is really important. And also making sure that that's not the only
Only
person they
having you.
have to talk to because
Exactly.
I have had children come to see me who have had become addicted to conversations with AI, and we've had to work through that. So
Right.
I think any tool has, if it's carefully managed, it
Mm.
has something to offer. Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing about life, isn't it? It's like everything is about balance. If you have too much of any one thing, even if it's a good thing,
yeah.
right, it's not going to serve you. Everything is about balance, it's about flow. You look at our DNA strands, you look at anything that's in flow, it has a movement to it. It's not a straight line, it has a pattern.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And we've got to understand that the like the car isn't just the piston, right? It needs everything else in order to work. And if we just hone in on one thing, then we're throwing everything else out and then you're still not functioning properly. So we have to look at ourselves and how do we become the orchestra? How do we become the full engine and recognize what's out of sync and pay attention to that by the other things supporting it. And it's about that balance. And children don't know balance, right? It's one thing, it's extreme pretty well and everything that they do. They're on or they're off. There's very, very few times they're a nice, happy medium. And it's teaching them how to have that balance, how to listen to that inner voice, how to know when to take that time out, to take that breath, and it's, if we don't know it as adults, how can we, show our children? And I think that awareness is really, really important.
Well, that's a very good point. I think our jobs as parents is to be the outside brain for our child
Hmm.
because their brain isn't developed yet.
Yes.
It's in the process of developing. And I think it's easier if a parent knows that your job is to be regulated and to be
Hmm.
calm and to model how to respond in this situation because this little person doesn't have the programming yet.
Right.
Go back to the,
Yeah.
right? So it's our job to provide this model and this method on how to conduct ourselves. And as our brains develop, then we can, the children will have that access to the skills that they need. But yeah, parents play. a really big role in helping regulate their children. But we have to know our own stuff too. Like we need to have
Yeah,
attended to that so that we can be calm and patient and
yeah.
regulating. Yeah.
I know them shows many ones on children, but also shows around animals. And they say if your animal or your dog, your cat is playing up, they're feeling your energy, and this is how they're expressing it. They're just mimicking you in the way that they know how. And children are the same.
Hmm.
If they feel the tension, they don't understand what that tension is, they're immediately going to take it on as their fault. They've done something wrong, right? And if you can't manage it or you're not open about it, then they're going to carry it without understanding what they're carrying.
Yeah. And they'll own it and think it's theirs or it's their
Yes.
fault. Or I know my dog, when she starts to get really annoying, I'm like, and starts whining a lot, and then I start reacting. I'm like, oh, we all need a walk.
Yes. Yeah.
And really that's all that we needed. And I
Yes.
go out there, my blood pressure falls, and
Uh,
she's happier, and I'm like, okay, thank you, puppy. Like, and then we go back in the house, and everyone's like can carry on with what they're trying to do. Or
it's the same that we have these animals today that for people with post-traumatic stress, for epilepsy,
Mhm.
for many, challenges. And these animals not only are trained, but they instinctively know something's wrong, and they know how to tell their owner,
Yeah.
what is wrong. Because very often, if you do have a challenge and you're stepping in to that being ignited, you don't realize you're in it until you're in it. And these animals, to pay attention to your animals, don't push them away. Pay attention to your children. If they're suddenly
Mhm.
coming up to you or hugging you or doing something or asking you what's wrong, don't dismiss them.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, because
listen
they.
to the profoundness of a child's intellect is so pure.
Hmm.
There's so much for you to learn. And I've got this almost 4-year-old little boy, and 22, yeah, 22-month-old little Louis here. And each one of them obviously play in a different way. But um, my older one is so into cars, right? It's traffic jams. It's going on the ferry. When we had the snow, it was what's black ice. So I show him a video of cars slipping and sliding in the ice, and then when we go to the playing, his cars are slipping and sliding in the ice.
Right.
And then showing him other things. What's a tornado? What's this? What's that? And then the reaction to it. But it's also the things that he comes up with, like weeks later,
Mm.
and that it's been paid attention to, and now it comes out, and it's like, wow, right? And we think, oh, children are stupid, until they're adults. No, they're incredibly smart, and they're sponges,
Hmm.
right? So we've got to be careful what we put in there,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, pay attention, because they're actually so profound in their innocence. They can teach you.
Well, I think that lots of things in nature, our children, animals, they all have a lesson. And if we think back to traditional indigenous wisdom, like that's what was used for storytelling, is to
Yes.
pay attention to this animal. Even fairy tales like the wolf
Mm, yeah.
and the fox and the crow. And I think about my dog and how I think she's a model for what contentment looks like. She just lives in the moment.
Yes.
And and I didn't really know that that's something I needed until I got a dog. And then I was like,
Right.
well, that's what that looks like. That's what that feels like. She's just there appreciating her surroundings and being with me. And maybe I can learn something from that.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, I'm a hugger in a big way.
Yeah.
And last week I had a friend's dog while she was away, and I kind of been on the fence: should I get a dog or shouldn't I?
Mm.
And then having this dog, which is this cuddler, and of course I cuddle my grandchildren, and one loves it. He goes to Nana. It doesn't mean mum and dad are around; it's
Yeah.
Nana, right? The other one, he comes up and gives me a kiss. Um, and he gives me love, but then he's busy playing, right? But with the dog, it's like comes up and sits next to you, or sleeps next to you, or comes up, give me a hug. And I realize that it's asking for a hug because it loves a hug, but it's asking for a hug because it knows I need one,
Yeah.
right?
I
So
think animals are really good for our mental health. Like they can,
very,
yeah.
very,
They,
very, very. And I think they I think also in many ways they take away our so of importance, where we can get so wrapped up in ourselves. And then when we have something else to look after, something else that we're responsible for, it helps us find that balance. And we then realize how much they give us back. So I think it's really important. But, we've divested from color and art, but everything is art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything is art. And I think if we can see even the art in each other, when we
Mm.
talk about an artistic person, it doesn't mean that they're a painter. They could be a performer. They could just be flamboyant. They could just be a person that is very expressive creatively in the way they speak. So art is in many, many forms. And it's like, yes, we look at art and the pictures and the sculptures and everything else, but how does a person move? How does a person speak? Because that may be their art form.
I think that we are, um, well, we're all creative. That's what it means to
Mm,
be a human being. It's like it's
mm.
innate in all of us. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to get paid large amounts of money to stand on the stage and be called an artist. It's just one of our fundamental qualities as a human being is to be able to create art or to
Yes,
create, whether, like you said, it could be come in many forms.
yes.
I think it goes back to we have a creator and we are a creation, and it's one of the
Hmm.
qualities that
Hmm.
we have access to because we're created in that image. So um, I think we should celebrate that skill and use it. Um, yeah.
Yes. Um, I think, one of the things that we may have lost our art in many ways because we've lost our way to express,
Mhm.
right? And I think for so many people, um, they're getting drowned out, social media and this and that. Um, and I think for a lot of people, especially under the current situation, which is an atmosphere of unknown. It's an atmosphere of fear of how it's going to impact me. It's an atmosphere of are we going so backwards, right? And so many people um, are just so caught up in that atmosphere. I don't want to be. I'm not going to pay attention to the news, but it's out there.
Yeah.
It's an atmospheric
Yeah.
film out there right
Right.
now that we can't avoid it.
Yeah.
But what are we going to do about it? And I think that for every negative out there, it's always an invitation for something positive. And so we're in a phase of transformation as a human race. 7 years ago, the universe gave me a saying: we're going to shake you up, to wake
Mhm.
you up, for you to step up, to change it up, to grow up vibrationally to a higher frequency. Also, as a human race, grow up,
Yeah.
right? And we're still, there's a lot of shaking going on, and there's a lot of stepping up, and a lot of realizing we need to change it up, and we need to step up to that higher frequency of kindness, caring, loving, and just being there for each other. But in order to get there, there has to be change. In order to have a clean house, you've got a clean house,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's how do we take the angst and and the stress, and how do we find a way to express how we feel without feeling guilty? Well, everybody's feeling like this. Nobody wants to know about mine. And it's like express it through an art form. What I call spend the emotion.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good phrase. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Spend the emotion, see it for what it is, release it so that you can embrace a more positive emotion.
And once you've done that, I think it's important to think about how can you use your grounded state to make the world a better place.
Yes.
And I think service is a virtue, and it's a way to act, like to how can you counter the negativity and what contribution can you make? Can you work with the youth in your community? Can you do something with your neighbor? Like to just form those bonds of connections because we are so disconnected. We are
Yeah.
connected on a digital way, but are we connected, think post-COVID and
Yeah.
materialism and working
Yeah.
so hard? We need to find opportunities to connect with the people in our space so
Yes.
that it becomes a safety net, become and we can overcome these challenges that uh, we are encountering as a civilization and society, right?
I mean, art, as I said, comes in all forms, but if you have a painter in you or somebody who is artistic, a creator through the arts, um, give them the tools they need. They don't know what they're capable of doing if they don't have the canvas.
Yeah.
I'm always saying to people, it's like whatever you've gone through in life, my daughter's just gone through a breakup with her boyfriend of 4 years, and uh, her two tenants are just moving out, and it's just everything happening at once. And I said, okay, as much as upsetting as it is, it's also a redirection to a new canvas. This canvas is now for you to paint of what you want to have on that.
Yeah.
Let your whole soul and spirit be the brush on this canvas instead of the expected canvas. And it's like always turning something into something. But if we don't give children the tools to express it, because maybe it isn't a paintbrush on a canvas or a piece of paper, maybe it is creating something out of the Play-Doh, maybe it is music, maybe it is that. Pay attention to your child and what way do they light up and open up, doing what, and then that's what you need to open the door for and let them experiment with it and see what it does for them.
I think a tell is when your child needs support that way is the state of their room and how
Yeah,
long, right? And if it starts to get to a point where it's incredibly cluttered or there's garbage under the bed, it's like they're cluttered in their mind, and it's
yeah,
time to clean the slate, and then they'll be calmer, and
yeah.
it'll give an opportunity to connect with them. And then when you're calm, you can be like put them in. You could do physical things or creative things with them because
Mhm.
they're in a regulated space. I know for me as an artist, when my studio gets too overwhelming,
Mhm.
and I've kind of run and I don't have any more ideas coming. I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. It's time to clean the space, wipe the table down, sweep the floor, take everything off the walls. It's like, okay, fresh start. And okay, now I'm regulated, and then the ideas come.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't mean it may not get more chaotic, because I'm
Oh,
a person that kind of works in chaos. If you see my desk, it doesn't matter how much I tidy it up, I guarantee it's going to be back in chaos.
right.
And it just seems I work that way. So it's recognizing I work that. For me, it's finding the order out of the chaos.
Yeah.
But I need
That's
to be in the chaos to find the order,
Yoda.
right?
That's that
Where,
balance again, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And there are other people that do not want anything out of order because it disrupts them. And it's like, how can they step into chaos peacefully
Mhm.
without feeling, out of control? And it's like, how do we push our boundaries? How do we push that something that cripples us or paralyzes us? And how do we push it to a point where we can release the emotion, right? Can release the feeling, but empower ourselves to know we're so much more than.
Yeah. Are you asking like in an art perspective? Is that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah? I think one technique is to there's a sensory motor art therapy method where even for adults it's really helpful. Like you close your eyes and you have a big piece of paper and you take two colors, one in each hand. So then you have this bilateral crossing that happens, which activates your brain. And you just scribble,
Scribble.
just scribble. It feels really good.
Yes,
And then you stop scribbling when it just stops feeling like that's what you need to do. And there's no judgment there, right?
right,
Because your eyes are closed. That part of your brain's turned off instead of, that's a silly line or that's the wrong color or
right.
it's you
Mm.
just play and
Yeah, and
scribble.
it doesn't matter what's there. You could crumple it up if you want. It's the
Absolutely.
the practice, as you said, of balancing.
Yeah.
Back to balancing, right? Balancing the brain so there isn't one that's overriding the other.
Yeah. It gets you
But you
back
might
into
also be
sync.
surprised by how those scribbles have come about. What do you see in the scribble?
Well, I find for me quite often it ends up being this crazy brain. And I'm
Yes.
like, oh, crazy brain. That's where we're at
Yeah.
right now. It's a phrase I have. It's like, we're at crazy brain. Okay. And then they'll find that the next scribble is much more rhythmic and
Mm,
regulated and it goes from longer and longer like fluid lines. And I know my
mm.
energy it's kind of like a heart monitor or like a electricity flowing that
Yes.
now, okay, we're not,
You're
it's
not static.
I'm
You're,
not
yeah,
static.
you're
Yeah,
back
it's
in rhythm.
yeah,
And I think that actually is a great practice to take with kids, isn't it? When they're all saying, okay, let's do this together. I'm going to do this. You're going to do this. Let's see, where is our brain? And tell them that we're going to balance the brain,
yeah.
right? And make it a fun thing and make it something, because one of the chapters I've got in here in the book is somebody who teaches meditation and yoga to children.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
Right. And it's the earlier that we teach in these techniques, like my little grandson has been learning to breathe right from the very word go,
that's a
when
gift.
it,
Yeah.
and it's like Let's teach them these techniques where they know I'm getting out of control. What do I need to do? Okay, get those crayons and go
Yeah.
and bring yourself down, because again, you cannot have the clarity when you're in that state of right? You have to bring yourself down into a rhythm, into a breath where everything is aligned, and then the solution is presented. So what techniques can you do to do that? And that's
Well,
important.
yeah, it is very important. And even just saying stop and then
Mm,
asking, where is your body and
right.
where do you feel it in your body or how are
Yeah.
you feeling? Like you got to name the situation that's happening. Like, wow, stop. I noticed that you're twirling around the playroom and stepping on the toys. Let's take it,
Yes.
right? So, and then they stop and they look and they see it and then let's take a deep breath.
Right.
Right. And that four square breathing, I think, is one of my favorites, where you breathe in for four breaths, you hold it for,
Yes.
or four counts, pardon me, and then you breathe out for four counts. And I find the money spot is in
Mm,
the breathing out and the
yeah.
holding it, because now we're very good when we're anxious to go, we
Yeah.
breathe, but breathing to calm your nervous system is to breathe out.
Yes.
And so if you can practice breathing out, then all of a sudden, even just me doing that right now with you, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I feel better, right?
Right.
Yeah, and we slow
And
down
there's
and
also many techniques. I mean, there's tapping, which is amazing for bringing
yes.
things down, which shows you think
Absolutely.
if we could teach kids, like even a tapping thing, they're in the middle of class.
Yeah, this one right here,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And even going up and down your arms, like this
I
one
even found
too,
like the chest
the
sometimes
chest
just
one.
yeah. Yeah.
And if they're standing, it's hard to show you here, but they kind of swing around and each one hand taps the front, one hand taps the back, and it gets all this cross meridian happening.
Right.
And it's a very in movement, which is part of the expressive arts. It just gets the energy out and regulated. And yeah.
It'd be very interesting to have somebody do a manic painting in a
Mm.
state of thing, and then afterwards to go through the techniques, calm down, and then do another painting straight after.
And then to see the difference,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's the proof in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Quite often in what we do is three takes. So
Mm,
you'll come in, you'll sit down, and you'll do one take, and it's sort of just it has that angsty energy.
yeah.
Then you go back and new piece of paper, and you draw something that's an extension of that. And
Mm,
then the third time, the third take, normally there's a wisdom that comes through because a
mm,
person's acknowledges where they're at, starts to feel regulated and
yeah.
calm, and then now there's space for the learning that they needed to
Yes.
come in, and then they can take action on that. So,
Well, this network is called Self-Discovery Wisdom,
right,
and we're all on a discovery of self. And the wisdom that is accessible to us, because that wisdom is there all the time, accessible to us. It's just a
absolutely.
question: do we pay attention to it?
Yeah.
And so our discovery is, what instrument are we? How do we learn to play it? Can we play solo? But what happens if we join an orchestra and
Hmm.
each one of us and our own strengths agree to play harmoniously together? And how we then transcend that
Oh,
instrument out even more. And I think that's something is you need to master your own instrument before you can join that collective, because otherwise you're joining a collective in your static state, right? Or you join a static thing which you
yeah,
don't want,
yeah.
because like if we look at ourselves all as an algorithm,
Hmm.
right? What we put out is what we get back, and if we keep getting back, then it's like, well, what am I putting out? Maybe I need to
Well,
change my algorithm.
yeah, I think so. That's such a great analogy. I'm glad we started to realize, like, why are you getting all the cat videos,
Yeah.
or maybe not cat videos? Maybe it's
Mm,
something like fighting, or yeah, really that old adage of karma, like you get what you put
yes.
out, right? It's
Yes. Yeah. There are
personifying
so
that.
many things out there. Now, with the indigenous people, with, now finally their voice being heard, finally being seen,
Yeah.
finally being able to step up into their own culture and be revered for it. It's a long journey of recovery, right? Especially for elders.
Mhm.
Um, the younger ones will adapt to it a lot quicker. The elders are still remembering the way they've been treated. And of course, there's still a lot of transition in the way they're treated. But how do you find art therapy? Because everything they do, the carving and the way they dance and the clothes that they wear and the rhythm of their dance, it's all art in a form. But for some, it's switching that art back on, isn't it?
Well, that was initially what drew me to being involved in the like studying expressive arts therapy, having grown up in the Yukon and being
Mm,
involved with the First Nations communities there, seeing how the communities were healing because they were engaging with their traditional dances and learning their stories and creating. But it wasn't just trying to bring back the past; it was becoming a
mm,
living culture. So the regalia
yes.
was being transformed. They were using different materials for that. And you could see the community was just coming alive. Then there was a light being turned on.
Right.
So I just that's what got my attention to realize that wait a second, there's something very powerful here about the expressive arts and how it can help communities heal.
Mm,
So taking that learning here in on the island, I'm working with a community group, and one of the elders asked us to create a blanket
mm,
and on this blanket to record the sacred teachings of his people so that the youth would have access to this information.
the
Um,
history. Mm,
and so as part of this exercise, the youth have designed an incredible eagle shape, and
mm,
each of them have created a feather, and on that feather they learned to sew a virtue that is their core. So
yeah.
they chose like whether they were creative or loving or hopeful, or they had all kinds of words available to them. And every time I think about it, I get a little choked up
Yeah.
to see each stitch is their presence, like their
Essence.
acknowledgement of who they are, their core.
Mm,
And so now we're in the process of assembling it, and I'm hoping to have like a some drumming and the
yeah.
communities and to come together and to really,
And the media needs to be seeing this because they need to see it. Basically, what you're doing is people are sharing their soul
yeah,
collectively. They become the orchestra,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And how healing is that for other communities to see that, to see those souls in this blanket, to see that expression. Again, everybody looks at art in a different way and it has a different feeling. But knowing that this is where somebody in their vulnerability, the greatest gift they can share, the sharing of their soul, the essence of who they are, to this collective piece,
Mhm.
which is their history, their presence, and their future, is such a beautiful thing to connect because I think the Indigenous people know they have a history. They know what they want to preserve. Very often, as Westerners, we come from so many different diverse backgrounds, so many different cultures. We don't necessarily have a history or a culture that binds us anymore. And I think that is what makes us lost. So something like this kind of maybe want us to seek out our own heritage. Where do we come from? Or,
Yeah.
how can we create something that becomes, our community that we can all invest in? And I think that's that inspiration begets the invitation, right?
Well, you make a very good point because in this process, I've started to explore my Métis heritage, which is not
Mm,
something that was in the forefront of my upbringing.
mm,
It wasn't a healthy story, so it
right.
wasn't one my family wanted to carry into the
Mm.
future. But it's still a part of our story, and
It's part of your
so
DNA.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's been an interesting opportunity to do a deep dive into understand that part of my family and why
Mm,
things are the way they are and to try to take the lessons from that. And I hope that it gives me a deeper sense of empathy. Um,
mm.
I guess so. My eyes are watering.
Yes.
A deeper sense of empathy.
That connection there.
Yeah, that I mean, my experience is not the same as a First Nations individual's experience, and I fully honor and recognize that. But if I can have learn something from my family's heritage and
Yes.
use that to help me serve the community, and I'm so grateful that I was invited to be a part of this project and to
Yeah.
help move it along. It's definitely a community initiative, and there's been so much learning for everybody involved, and it's been a real gift to be a part of.
Well, when they look at a person of color, if they're 1 ounce black, then they're black. It doesn't matter how much white they are, right? And that's how
Yeah.
society has labeled them. Why don't we look at them as colorful? And, I think it's time that our character, our integrity, who we are is what people see,
Yeah.
right? And it's not about where you come from, although that very, very much dictates who you are, right? And it's keeping good things alive about it, right?
Hmm.
Acknowledging it's like history right now, people not knowing about the Holocaust, not knowing about what Nazism really stands for. And
Yeah.
now it's being, uh, revered and ignited again without them truly understanding the horrors, of really what happened. And and it's like if we don't look at the atrocities, we cannot understand the reaction, or the prevention
Yeah.
in the future. And I think we need the history, but we also don't need to rewrite history, but we need to look at our present and our future as a blank canvas and weave in it what have we learned from that history, from who we are, from the very core of ourselves, and make sure that that canvas represents us. It's not whether you're black, white, pink, yellow, polka dot, right? Man,
Yeah.
woman, well, whatever religion you are, who are you in the essence of who you are? Because people will receive your energy, your essence before they'll see you.
Yeah. It's true. I think that if we seeing our essence, it transcends the planet. Like if you
Yes.
see Earth from outer space, like
Mm,
you did the color and the boundaries and the borders, like
yeah.
don't have any significance, right? This is
No.
our home. And
Human race.
human race. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's just we need to accept each other for who we are and not get too bogged down in the details of one particular person, like where their community's from, or I don't know
Mm.
if that makes sense, but I
Well,
agree. I get to
understanding the
say I agree with
history.
you.
It's
Yeah.
understanding the foundation of who we are, because that just, is I am British born, I'm Viking descent,
Yeah.
right? And part Scottish,
Yeah.
right? So, and now my daughter married somebody that's mostly Scottish, so there's and she's half Chinese,
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
right? So she's got the Chinese culture, the Scottish culture, the Viking culture, and she is dark-haired, dark-eyed. Her children are green eyes and strawberry blonde hair,
Yeah.
and white, white, white skin of the
No.
Scottish,
Yeah.
right? So, and that just kind of, you can't deny the DNA. You cannot. And if you understand the DNA and that the history, I love antiques because I love the history of the antiques.
Right.
Where have they come from? What was their journey? What do they have to tell me? Is why I love the stories of people. I mean, look at Canada and any country that. I mean, what they did was wrong, but people looking for a new world, a new life. I've been an immigrant 3 times.
Okay.
Right. So I know what it's like to uproot and go to a new culture and a new life. And I'm a white woman with English speaking, so very, very much easier for me, except for the woman part. Right. So,
Concur with that. Yeah.
white English, one thing, okay. But woman part had its own obstacles.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
So there isn't anybody out there that hasn't had these obstacles. And I think we need to talk about them. We need to address them so we don't repeat them.
Yeah.
And it's a way of liberating us and coming together. And it's like, I've interviewed people who have had the most horrific things happen to them that should never happen to a human being.
Mhm.
But they went through the process of finding their courage, their strength, and their abilities, right? And through that now, they have discovered who they are, why they are, and what they're here to do. The empowerment of who they are as a soul, of a spirit, as an entity today is they're serving everyone else. But we have to be willing to go through it as part of the healing. They are not what happened to them.
No,
They are what
absolutely.
they became because of what happened to them.
That
And that's a
calamity is
choice.
what is a gift, really, is although
Yes.
we don't like to think of it that way, but
Mm.
it's the darkness that helps us see the light. It's
Yes.
the calamity that helps us develop those inner qualities within us.
Yes.
And the darkness and the calamity is what helps us, like we were talking about the Nazism and the
Yes.
right. If we are connected to our past, then we can see why the way we do things now is important. Like vaccines, for example, there's quite a push for
Yes.
anti-vaccines because
Yes.
no one's getting sick. But those vaccines, if we know the history of how they evolved, then you can see that those illnesses are gone now. And that's like there's a rise on measles now because people haven't been
Exactly.
vaccinating. And so,
Exactly.
yeah,
And nothing is black and white.
no,
Yes, we know we need to hold things accountable. Is it safe? Right? Yes, there has to be accountability. There has to be transparency, but it isn't all or nothing.
no, great.
Why do we have scientists? Well, scientists were given to us, by God, universe, spirit, energy, source, whatever you want. That's the intellect they were given to be inquisitive as to what could be,
Well, I think there
right?
needs to be harmony, and like, right?
Exactly.
Science and spirituality or religion,
Yes.
they inform each other. And sometimes the guidance from like spiritual teachers is before the scientists have got there to, and I feel like that's their job, is to come up with the language and the
Yeah.
how-to for this
Yes.
idea that's been floated, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's so many people I've interviewed that have been engineers
Okay.
that now are on that spiritual path. And
Yeah.
they're actually able to do their spiritual path even better because they know the building structure that is needed as the
Yes.
engineer in order to address what's needed to spread our wings,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
absolutely. They have a framework, right?
yeah.
That
Hmm.
they're working towards. And they know what they're working towards. That's
Yes.
how often in science fiction is there something that seems so far out. Like I remember, right, being able to talk to somebody on your like to see them on a little portable TV was like this wild idea,
I
right?
know, I
And I
know.
used to worry about like what if you're on the in the bathroom and they call you and they can see, right? That was so far out. Now it's a problem,
Yes,
right?
I
Now it's a
know.
problem.
And
So
people were worried about, robots taking over. It
it
has. It's
has.
called a mobile. And again, that comes into balance.
Yeah.
When do you put it down? When do you switch it off? I used to work to all hours and then no balance.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
am off at 5 o'clock. That's it. I only now work 3 days a week of interviewing and then obviously weekend admin, but it's time for my grandchildren and it's time to live and get out there and socialize, balance.
Yeah.
And if we actually understand, how can I give of myself if I'm not being fortified? And what is it that fortifies me so I can give more of what I need to give?
Well, and I think, why do we have to work so hard? Why do
Yeah.
we need to chase the dollar? So like, is if that's because it doesn't provide true meaning and purpose in life.
No, no,
I'm
that's the societal expectation.
right.
That's delusional. Yeah.
I feel grateful for this particular period in my life where I'm able to have more balance. I have time
Mm,
for learning while I'm
hmm.
working on my PhD, and I have time for working with children and making a living, and I have time to volunteer and be of service. And
Right.
um, it was something, a goal that I had for a very long time. Like, why
Mm,
do I need to chase the dollar? I don't have time for
yeah.
my family. I don't have time to be creative, and I don't have time to enjoy the things that I have.
Well,
So,
what you've stepped into is enrichment and abundance. That's got nothing to do with the dollar sign.
no, but I am so much happier.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's because you're enriched and abundant.
yesterday I volunteered with the my daughter's youth group. I
Hmm.
went to choir and
Yeah.
I also went to the pottery studio.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm like that, and I was like, is this allowed? Is this
Well,
allowed?
that's the point. Where it's somewhere along the line, it got to be, unless you're working 80 hours a week and unless you're at this price bracket, unless your house is this, you're nothing. You're a failure. And this became consumerism.
Hmm.
You needed more, you had to have more to justify your importance. And
Yeah.
now we're realizing, especially millennials, I have three millennial kids.
Mm.
And for them, it isn't about that status quo. It's about the inner happiness.
Yeah.
It's about, does it mean something to me? And they're not chasing the dollar because they realize the dollar doesn't define them. That's not to say that the dollar isn't important.
Yeah.
Again, balance. How much do I need to sustain me so I can do the things that really bring me joy?
Well, waiting till you retire, it doesn't seem like a smart game plan, because I know a lot
Yeah.
of people that are seniors and one of the spouses gets injured or
Yes.
passes away and the dreams never happened. So why like
Yeah.
work until you can't anymore and then you're too tired or injured, so you can't go, right?
Exactly.
So I think
Exactly. I'm going to be working probably into my 90s. That's my cosmic contract. Will review my life in
maybe
20 years. Um, but I've got another book coming out of Forgotten Seniors, which I'm gathering
mm,
authors for right now, and there'll be seniors who will participate with a chapter on podcasts and summits. And the reason I'm doing it is I want to celebrate their contribution. I want to hear their challenges,
yeah.
right? And I want them to share their warning with the
Mm,
younger generation of,
yes.
if you're not taking care of your seniorhood now, you're going to have a shock later on. I'm at that stage. I'm a pensioner.
Right.
And it's like, whew, costs are going up like that. Pension isn't. And it's
No.
a struggle.
Yeah.
And people have worked all their lives and they've, I'll give you a quick story which blew my mind. Um, Somebody I know that goes in and helps seniors with their computers, and he went to this couple and they were normally in this really nice room. They're not there anymore. They were in the basement in cots in their 90s because their 1.2 million didn't afford them to live in this not nursing home but retirement community. Their money ran out. They outlived their money,
Oh.
and
Oh.
they were put down in the basement in cots in their 90s.
It was disposed of.
This is in Victoria.
Oh my God.
Exactly. And that, when they had 1.2 million and they went into this retirement complex, they thought that will sustain them for their lives.
Yeah.
And then the money ran out. And then this is the way they were treated. Right. And
That,
it's like, that's a
yeah.
warning, folks.
Yeah. We can't, yeah, your elders, like, we need to respect them. They're human beings.
Exactly. And if you can't respect somebody that good or bad, I mean, we've all made mistakes, we're 70, for me, brought up in the 70s and the 50s generation. Um, it, as my once neighbor said, we made so many mistakes in the 70s because that's really when we started chasing the money, the power,
Mm.
the this and that at the expense of.
Yeah.
And he was apologizing to my generation because he was a bit older than me. I was a teenager in the 70s going into adulthood. He was apologizing to me for just choices he made that now we're paying for. And now choices we made, our kids are paying for. All right. And so if we become more mindful of what our choices are, does it serve me? Does it serve society? Does it serve
Mhm.
our planet?
Yeah.
Right?
I think the role of having healthy individuals that are conscious of their capacities and what their contribution could be trickles up. Like then you have
Exactly.
communities then too that are healthy and resilient and creative and can overcome challenges. And then if you have communities, then you have institutions, right? That are that are solid and serving the public and have ethics and morals and are there to be of service, not just to be on the backs of, right?
Right.
Or take it.
And those institutions, do not look to them to be the answer. Your solution as a community, knowing what's needed to change and starting the change will have them change what they do. Do not
Exactly.
look to government and all these institutions to come up with the ideas. It's always driven by community. It's always driven by, the parents or the seniors or the people that see what the problem is and their voice then starts singing like a choir. And then institutions take their sweet time, but eventually realize, oh, well, what we've been doing doesn't work. We need to listen to them because what they're doing is working. How do we integrate it? And
Uh,
unfortunately, anything governmental
Yeah.
takes an eon to do.
But what's interesting too is I think children and youth are going to be the people in the institutions, and it's
Mhm.
happening already. And so
Yes.
if they, and I'm noticing a capacity with the youth that I work with, is that they have this ability to consult.
Yeah.
They take action, small steps, and then they reflect on it. And
Yeah.
they do this consistently. And the amount of growth that they're experiencing in their and effect that they're having on their community is happening very quickly because they
Uh-huh.
have this skill. And so,
Yes.
and then they're going to be the ones that are in these institutions. So they'll have the ability to consult with one another. It's not a power struggle. It's not
Right.
about building a kingdom, right? Sorry, this thing popped out. And so I am optimistic that
Yeah, they're more community driven, and we actually refer to them as indigo children because
I've
if
heard
you
that,
look
yeah.
at, yeah, they're just so intuitively smart and intuitively holding people accountable. I've got another genre called the Sisterhood of Common Sense.
Hmm.
Love, common sense love, and all the men that to love and support them. But what we're needing right now in society, because we've let the boys play and they've become bullies.
Hmm.
And so what it is the mama love rolling up her sleeves and going, uh-uh,
Yeah.
I love you, but this kind of behavior isn't going to happen. And we're going to pick people up who've been spat out and trod on and help them, fortify them to take a direction that is safer and more productive for them and our society. but it's going to be the women, the
Yeah.
mamas that step up there and say no anymore. And we've got to understand that the children that are these indigo children are going to be those mamas. And then many of them have that common sense love and ability to see things from a rational point of view that
Yes.
somehow seem to miss our generation.
Yeah. Well, it is a time for the feminization of thought, right? Like to
Absolutely,
have that
absolutely.
quality. And I think
Mm,
if there not if, but when more women have a voice
yes,
in power in higher levels of government, I think war will cease. Because are you going to let your
mm,
baby boy go kill somebody else's baby boy? I don't
yes.
think so.
If men actually carried a baby for 9 months,
Right? There's a
gave birth,
lot
would they send them so eagerly off to jail, off to
there's
death, And it's, oh, make war such a glorified thing. I've got another genre about our global veterans, and I interview a great deal of veterans, and I would tell them, I am anti-war.
oh yeah.
And but it's who they are now, again, like the engineer, because of the discipline they've had in whatever they've been doing, they came back to realize what they needed, they didn't get. They created it for themselves and other veterans that now spills over into society, right?
Yeah.
So they've taken that discipline and created a need. And that's what I celebrate, right? And obviously, the fact that they went out there, but why did they have to? Why do we have to annihilate each other?
For over dirt.
Oh, well, don't forget dirt that's going to be the new Riviera.
Yeah.
As a,
We're fighting over dirt.
yes,
Right? It's like a
yes,
giant sandbox. So
yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah. And we've got to, and I think what we're looking at the powers that be right now, all these billionaires that are in power, they've always been there,
Hmm.
but we didn't see them. Now, the scum has come to the top and we can see them for what they are. Well, that also means we can scoop it off.
There we go. Right? Like yeah, if we can't clean it, if we can't see it,
Exactly.
right? And so it's on full display right now, and then we have an opportunity, an obligation, I think,
Yes.
to acknowledge that this is not how things can move forward.
No.
And yeah, that old way needs to go. It's that
And
time is
we're
done.
in that state right now of, and like, what are we going to do? These tariffs, this, that, etc. And everybody doesn't know because it's a seesaw,
Yeah.
with him, and then people are constantly on guard trying to fight what his ever next move is going to be. And it's not just him. We've got various other leaders around the world. They are all narcissistic sociopaths
Yeah.
that it doesn't matter how much you give them, it will never be enough because it's the lack inside,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And the more we look at that, they become the poster child of what is wrong with the world, and also maybe what could be wrong within us because we bought into that. So if you're irate about that, look at your own choices, make more conscious choices yourselves, because it's
Mhm.
so easy to follow that Pied Piper without realizing you're doing it,
Or
right?
to like with kids, we talk about using your wits, right? You walk
Yes,
away from a bully, you ignore them,
yes,
you talk to someone to help you, and then you seek help. And I can sort of see that transpiring now.
yes,
Um, but yeah, bullies, it's a frustrating thing to see the state of the world, but I think if we can give more energy into serving our communities, I know for me, the state of the world now has me spurred me on. I feel
yes,
energized.
yes,
And the projects, that service projects that I was a part of are now becoming that's what my purpose is. And the other
yeah.
things, it's really forced me to analyze my situation and
Mhm.
decide what's important to me. And I see that the work I do with the youth is going to counter what's happening right now.
Yes.
It's a long game,
Yes, it's a
albeit.
long game. This is no quick fix. It's
No.
like with my shows. They're not 10 minutes of superficial.
Hmm.
There's a whole so lot of content that we've, produced here today, and it's for the people that want to know. And I mean, that's one of the things, going back to something you said at the beginning, time. If you're not willing to give time to the wisdom that's been shared for you,
Mm.
with you, then how are you going to know what you need? And my motto
Right.
with these shows is listen, learn, and apply. There is something we've spoken about today that you've learned that if you apply it to your life, to your children's lives, it will benefit you. And if it benefits you, then it will benefit people around you.
That's
But
right.
we've got to be proactive We have to be productive and not use what's going on as an excuse to be paralyzed and say, well, I'm only one person. What can I do? A choir has many voices and they need to be in harmony with each other,
Yeah.
right? That's what we're asking for. We need your voice. Show it in any what art form you like. No angst, no pitchfork. It's about the harmony, and let us, in harmony and love, drown out the hate.
Here, here.
So this is the thing, is that art is the healer, it's the expressor, it's the equilibrium. It tells a story, it invites people in. The when you see in schools, what do they cut art programs, they cut music programs. And it's like, do you know the detriment that you're doing? Because what you've done is just silence somebody's voice.
Well, because
That's their voice,
yeah,
right?
the math and science students, they're having success. And math and science and reading and writing,
All important.
so, so important. But when you have neurodiverse children,
Yes.
that drama class or that
Yeah.
art class or PE,
Yeah.
like that was the day that they were the expert
Yes.
and their
Yes.
confidence was attended to and they had something to contribute and the admiration of their classmates. So you take, because we're diverse, right? And so if you
Yeah.
take those away, then you're only educating part of the population.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And whatever label your kid may have, that is purely an identity of their challenge in life.
Yeah.
It's not the identity of who they are.
I like to tell families like the fact that there's a label means you're not alone, right?
Exactly.
It means there's a group of people that are having these situations, and these are the strategies that help a
Mhm.
person in this situation be more successful. So,
Exactly.
yeah, it
Exactly.
doesn't define what's wrong with you. It's supposed to be a tool.
Right. And we
Yeah.
used to look at people with autism. They would never hold a job. They would never get married. They'll never do this. And I beg to differ.
Yeah.
And then even Down syndrome, we've just had one young lady become a lawyer.
Oh,
We
fabulous.
see so
Wow.
many children with Down syndrome become actors and do very, very well. There may be some that will never, ever amount to that. Do you remember Gilligan's Island?
Yes.
And Gilligan and his wife had a child, and he was nonverbal autistic, and he
Okay.
needed care all entire life, and he stopped working to because at that time there were no resources. And
Yes.
later on, he bought another house next opposite street, and finally had somebody that could come in and live with him and give them more respite. But unfortunately, he died, and his wife has carried on, and she actually started writing books around it, and she's gone on to do that. Their challenge was much harder because the child was nonverbal. And it's like, how do you get their attention long enough for them to be able to focus in on something that's going to calm them down? And that's much bigger. But you have many autistic or Down syndrome or people with learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD, OCD, dyslexia. These are the challenges they're working with. And if
Yeah.
you understand that, then your expectation of how they're going to deliver what they're going to deliver is different, right? We don't need your judgment. We just
Yeah.
need your understanding. Like
I,
just quick thing. I'm a Survivor watcher. I like watching
oh,
Survivor.
yes.
And last night was the new season, and there's a young girl there with autism, and she trusted somebody with that. And she said, if you see me wringing my hands, if you see me doing things over and over again, please just come to me and just hold my hands and tell me to breathe, center me. Right. And she trusted him with it. And he said, I don't care if I win. I'm going to take care of this girl.
Oh, wow.
This could be my daughter. I'm going to take care of this girl. I mean, that's a win right there. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
how brave of her to trust somebody with that as well. Right.
Yeah.
Because again, the moment you've got a label of something, some people were targeted.
Well, and use it to their advantage, right?
Yeah.
For the monetary gain again,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I like to think of us as being like avatars.
Yes.
You know, here we are in this world connected to a higher power, and we're going to have to decide what our skin's going to be, and like
Yeah.
in the avatar language, right? And what form we take, and then we're given a series of tasks and a mission to accomplish, and we'll be sprinkled with a little bit of extra life and a little less strength, and but that you need these limiting conditions in a creative space, whether you're making art, like where you only have a paintbrush and red paint, or in life when maybe you're not as patient as you could be, right?
Mm,
Though that's what helps you grow, is because you have to
exactly.
overcome that challenge.
And to see the art in everything,
Yeah,
even in the darkness, a certain light will come out. What is that light doing? It's gently dancing, it's gently forming. Focus in on that light and let it grow.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So there's always an answer, but we can't see it if we're crunched. So what are the techniques for you to center yourself so you can see what is before you, which is very important. So, my dear, how do people get hold of you and what is it that you're offering them?
Well, you can get a hold of me through larkinboyletherapy.com.
Could you spell
And
that for people who are just listening?
sure, LARKINBOYLE therapy, THERPY, .com. And so I provide one-on-one virtual and in-person counseling for primarily children, but I also work with adults as well, as long as they're open to the expressive arts therapy model. Yeah.
And that's the thing, we all want to express ourselves. And sometimes we don't know how, we don't know where there's a safe place to do it. And
Yeah.
that's the important thing is like, you don't know if this is going to work for you or work for your child until you go and experiment and try it. And you have no idea what it's going to do for you. But we've got to be willing to try things that may seem out of the box. There is no box, folks.
That's true.
There is
Yeah.
no box, right? And it's like you don't know what it's going to do for you until you're willing to try it.
That's right.
So go and give it a try. Give it a try for your child. See what it does for you, and then it may just be your liberator. It may be your karma. It may be your voice. But you don't know until you've given it a try. And having it under the guidance of someone like you, Laurie, it's it's not just throwing paint onto a canvas. It's understanding the techniques, the tools, um, how to focus in, how to express out. What does it mean? All of that then gives it the structure. And when you have that kind of structure and you've got that freedom and invitation to express, it's the world is your oyster.
Right. Yes. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, thank you so much. I was delighted when I met you and I knew I wanted to interview you. And what you're doing is so important. And I'm glad that you found your own life balance and everything, has its you've got a nice little smorgasbord there. Nice
Yeah.
little buffet that you partake from. It's not all about meat and potatoes. And
Yes.
that's the important thing, right? Is
Yeah.
willing to experiment and try new things, which is
Variety.
important. There's always an answer to the problem.
Yes, there is. Yes.
So thank you so much. And to everyone out there, maybe there's an artist in you. Maybe, just nature speaks to you and brings out the color in you. What does art do? Maybe you have a child that is having a difficulty or having challenges through the neurodiversity. Reach out to Laurie and just see how she can help. Because if we don't reach out, we don't get the help we need. So
Mhm.
until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.